Welcome back to another GGF video. Today we'll be taking a look at yet another interesting case from Deepcool. This is the Deepcool Nuark 90. Now you may have seen this case advertised. It has been out for a little while. We did receive it before Computex, but I just haven't had the chance to get the review underway. Now the main aspect about this case is it comes with a pre-installed 280mm all-in-one cooler. You might just be able to see it in there at the moment, but what we're going to do is take a look at this case and we'll see how it all goes. The Nuark 90 from Deepcool is an interesting case. The highlight of the chassis is that it comes with a pre-installed Deepcool Captain 280mm all-in-one cooler installed on the side. You'll find full coverage for all current sockets bar Threadripper, so keep that in mind. Also included are 4 Deepcool RF 140mm RGB fans. Just bear in mind that these are the older static RGB fans and not the newer multicolored addressable style fans. These fans run up to 24 decibels and also have a max airflow of 64 CFM. Aesthetically, I think the case looks pleasing, especially for Deepcool. I would say for them, this is a more playing it safe design. The case is made up of a mixture of materials, SGCC steel for the frame and rear side panel, ABS plastic for the top and front covers, while tempered glass is used on top, front and the main side panel. Case dimensions come in at 530mm long, 232mm wide and 545mm high. Definitely not a small case by all means. The case weighs 14.3 kilograms, which isn't too bad, as the Nuark 90 is really built like a tank, strong, sturdy and stands well on the desk. Before moving on to the interior of the chassis, I'll quickly go over some more aesthetics and airflow of the case. One main attraction is the front of the case holds a built-in reservoir, which is hooked up to the included all-in-one cooler. This reservoir is also RGB backlit and features a small flow meter at the bottom. I must say it's very unique and looks quite nice. Moving along up to the top, we see the same RGB lines continue up here with the same RGB lighting from the front. This works well and gives you a continuous glow from the front all the way along the top. Front airflow is definitely going to be restricted as there are no vents on the front at all. Any front airflow will come from the bottom of the chassis or from the small slits on the side of the front cover. Something to keep in mind if you're planning a high-end system in this chassis. Top exhaust follows the same trend as the front, being completely closed with slits on the side. I can only assume Deepcool have gone with this to keep the front and top looking sleek and silent, but as I said earlier, definitely something to keep in mind for high-end systems. Side exhaust for the included side-mounted 280mm all-in-one cooler is good with what they call a distinctive dragon scale design. It does look different to what I've seen on other cases on the market, and I see no issues with exhausting air from the case. Another thing to keep in mind is that no air filters are included in the case, but just 2 running along the bottom of the chassis. One for your power supply fan intake and one for the front bottom air intake. The tempered glass side panel comes in at 3mm thick and has a very dark tint to it. 4 screws with rubber dampeners hold the panel in place. Moving on to the interior, we see a traditional ATX layout with motherboard support from MITX all the way to EATX. Also, when using EATX, you'll still have plenty of room for cable routing. The chassis also includes a full-length PSU shroud, but interestingly, it is shared with the triple hard drive cage at the front. Deepcool have added RGB lighting on the PSU shroud and a small window, which is a nice touch. There's plenty going on top of the PSU cover with support for one 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive, 3 well-spaced cable grommet holes, and lastly, mounting for a vertical GPU bracket. Just a note that this bracket, the Deepcool PEC 300, is not included with the case and needs to be purchased from Deepcool separately. A non-Deepcool bracket will not fit in this spot. Before taking a look at radiator support, I'll quickly note a few things with the included Captain 280mm all-in-one cooler. I had no issues installing the Deepcool AIO CPU block, but keep in mind that tubes are a tight stretch and maybe even tighter if using an MITX motherboard, which I'm sure nobody is going to do anyway. Another neat touch would have been if Deepcool added black retention brackets on the CPU cooler rather than bright chrome. Now you may have noticed the lack of a custom water cool build in this review. As the Nuark 90 comes with a pre-installed all-in-one cooler, I feel the only way to review it is how it comes. This doesn't mean I won't be covering radiator support either. I'll also be doing a full time-lapse build in this chassis, but that video will have the all-in-one cooler removed and a full custom loop installed. If you wish to remove the pre-installed all-in-one cooler that comes in the Nuark 90, I was told by Deepcool it could be done and had the ability to incorporate the front res into your custom loop, but going by the construction and the tubing they've used, it's not really a common standard in today's water cooling scene. Best will be to drain the all-in-one cooler and just leave the front res empty if you're going with a custom loop. Radiator support in the new ARC 90 is interesting. Both the front and top support up to 360mm radiators, but none of these spots support any 140mm config, which I thought was a bit strange. Only the side radiator location has support for 360 or 420mm radiators. Radiator clearance is pretty good all round, with top supporting up to 60mm thick radiators and front radiator thickness basically being unlimited, providing you remove the front hard drive cage. For the side radiator, you'll need to remove the front hard drive cage to fit any sizable radiator in this location. If you're thinking, sweet, I can fit 3 radiators in this case, then you might want to think again. The front and side radiators are going to interfere with each other. Best solution is either top and side or top and front. Another problem I found was radiator width. This seems to be cropping up more and more these days, and once again was the good old bits power versus EK situation. Deepcool have added these notches on the top and front for the panel covers to latch on. When using an EK radiator, the radiator will foul both top and at the front. You can see the radiator won't sit flat due to these notches. Also, the front panel cannot be pushed back on if using an EK radiator at the front. But using a bits power radiator, both top and front had no issues at all. Just keep in mind that bits power radiators come in at 120mm wide. Storage support, there's the single 2.5-inch SSD tray on the PSU cover, as well as 2 more SSD trays behind the motherboard. Deepcool have added an interesting front-loaded 3-drive cage for 3.5-inch hard drives or SSDs. To install drives in this spot, you need to remove the front panel. But here's the real kicker, you'll need to remove this cage completely if you wish to install a custom front or side radiator, leaving the case with 0 3.5-inch hard drive support. For front I/O, or for this case top I/O, we have the usual power button, hard drive LED, audio jacks and 2 USB 3.0 ports. I would have loved to have seen black USB ports instead of blue, as well as the inclusion of a USB 3.1 port. While on the top, we can find the Rgb Lighting Controls, which controls the fan lighting, AIO lighting, PSU cover lighting and the front and top RGB strips. These controls are installed in a very sneaky location. I feel this is great, keeping them subtle and out of sight. These controls include mode, brightness and speed control, and they control all the RGB in the case at once. But something to note is that there's no way to add or sync this lighting to your motherboard's built-in RGB software. Clearance areas on the case is good all round. CPU air cooler height is over 200mm if for some reason you decide to go that route. Horizontal GPU length is up to 320mm in length when using the pre-installed all-in-one cooler, but if vertically mounting your GPU, then length is unlimited. Around the back, you'll see roughly 20mm of clearance for cables behind the motherboard. Now just a few last things to touch base on. When installing a vertical mounted GPU, it is going to be very close to the tempered glass side panel. It's going to be probably less than half an inch away, so that's just something to bear in mind if you are running an air-cooled GPU. Now another issue I ran into, funnily enough, when installing a horizontal GPU like this, because this Strix 1080 is sort of a biggish sort of card, I had to remove the vertical GPU. This is sort of the mount support that actually sits sort of inside the chassis like this, and it was hitting the air cooler. So I still even can't put this back in because this sort of protrudes out into the chassis and it causes the air-cooled GPU to fail. But it's no real big deal. It just means you can't run the little I/O covers and you just got this big hole sticking out the back. So yeah, just bear in mind with that. Another thing that is going to be an issue with this case is airflow. Now every system is different, and for a basic system like this, it's going to be fine. Like if you're using the supplied all-in-one cooler, you got an single air-cooled GPU, and then I've got a 8700K in there. So for such a large case, you're not going to have any overheating or system's going to heat up and explode. But if you were going to run a high-end system, a few video cards and so on, it's going to definitely be restricted around the front and the top, so just keep that in mind as well. And I do think for such a large case, this isn't small. As you can see next to me, it's going to sit pretty large on your desk. I think there's a lot of wasted space, especially this case is built, and pretty much all I've got in there is the 280mm all-in-one cooler, and then you've got just not much else really. One video card, and then your power supply is hidden up there. And at the moment, I have removed the hard drive cage, because I think this setup, if you're not running any 3.5-inch hard drives, you're going to get a bit more cool air coming in from the bottom, because this is all mesh down the bottom, and you'll get a bit more airflow like that. But yeah, it is a large case, and there will be a bit of wasted space. Now, I was speaking to the guys from Deepcool since I've started this review. there may be a possibility they may be bringing out a non-all-in-one cooler version. So I can only assume that version will be cheaper and it won't come included with this. But in saying that, I hope they fix up sort of the rad issues and only being able to run the really sort of skinnier 120mm radiators, because that's wide, of course. And yeah, because by doing that, you'll be able to definitely sort of build a nice little beast in here with a 360 up the top, a 360 in the front. But at the moment, as you saw previously or earlier, just those little notches were stopping any larger radiators from being installed. And then by getting the non-all-in-one cooler version, it should be cheaper as well. Now, when it comes to price, this case, as is with the all-in-one cooler pre-installed, comes in at $300 US or 429 Australian dollars. So that's not too bad. You have to bear in mind that the all-in-one cooler is going to be about 100 US or 150 Australian. So if you slash that price off, it's pretty much going to be like a $200 US case, which I think isn't too bad. But just bear in mind, it is a very, very large case, and it may look sort of a little bit weird if you're not sort of filling it all up. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I want to thank Deepcool for sending this out to check out. I want to hear your thoughts on this case. What do you think? Do you think this is the right direction on bringing out cases that have all-in-one coolers installed, or do you like to go your own route and choose your own coolers? But yeah, this definitely isn't the first case that Deepcool has done with an all-in-one cooler. I'm pretty sure it probably won't be their last. But yeah, want to hear your feedback and let us know. But yeah, thanks for watching and stay tuned for next time.